Welcome, my dear students, for Standard 8, Subject Science, Chapter 4, Current, Electricity and Magnetism, Module 2. Let us see what are learning objectives. In this lesson, you will be able to learn about electric cell, able to identify the parts of an electric cell. You will also learn about lead acid cell and able to identify the parts of lead acid cell. Now let us begin with our lesson, that is current, electricity and magnetism. Students, now let us understand what are cells. Cells are devices that add electrical potential energy to charges moving through them. That is, they add voltage or EMF. They do this using chemical reaction in the cell. There are two types of cell. The first one is primary cell and the second one is secondary cells. Let us understand each one by one. Primary cells are non-rechargeable cells. Once the cell gives up all its energy, the chemical reaction cannot react again. Whereas secondary cells are rechargeable. Once the cell gives up all its energy, the chemical reaction that causes it to lose energy can be reversed by a charger, giving it more energy to use in the circuit. The example for primary cells are zinc carbon cells and anything that is non-rechargeable. And the example for secondary cells are zinc carbon cells and car batteries. So students, what happens when there is a power cut in the house? Yes, the room gets dark. So students, then in order to overcome from darkness, what is the first thing that we use? Yes, we all use a torch. Have you ever wondered how electric torch are able to produce light? Let us understand this. This is a internal structure of a torch. As we know, electric cell produces electricity for the torch to glow, and it produces electricity to a number of devices such as toys, alarm clocks, pocket radios and cameras. So students, have you ever carefully looked at an electric cell? Have you ever wondered how a electric cell makes the torch glow? Where does the electricity comes from? Let us understand this concept in more detail. So now let us understand the construction of an electric cell. Electric cell is cylindrical in shape, having chemicals stored in it. It has two terminals that are positive and negative terminals. Positive terminal is made up of metal cap with a plus sign, whereas negative terminal is flat metallic disc with a negative sign. Chemical reaction occurs inside the cell to generate electricity in electrical cell. Electricity is produced by the positive and negative charges. So students, there is something that we need to be careful about. That is, never ever connect both the terminals of cell with a wire. Do you know what will happen? It will lead to the use of chemicals inside the cell, and that will result in the flow of current. This eventually reduces the life of the cell. So students, do you know who was the first person to develop an electric cell? It was Alexandro Volta who discovered the electric cell in 18th century. So students, now let us learn about electric cell. A source is required to produce a uniform flow of charges in a circuit. Such a general device is an electric cell. Various types of electric cells are available today. These are used in a range of machines, from wristwatches to submarines. Out of this, we are aware of solar cells. The main function of various electric cells is to maintain a constant potential difference between its two terminals. The electric cells work on the electric charges to maintain a constant potential difference. So students, now have a look on this watch. And this is the cell that are used in this watch. This type of cells are called as silver oxide button or coin cell. These batteries are the most popular type of wristwatches batteries. They are not expensive, often have shelf life of 10 or more years. They have constant voltage during its operation, which is very similar to the nominal voltage of alkaline batteries. Now let us understand the materials that are used in a cell by an activity. So students, take a dry cell and remove its outer coating. Inside we will get a whitish metal layer. This is the zinc Zn metal layer, as you all can observe in the diagram. This is the negative terminal of the cell. Now carefully break or open this layer. There is another layer inside. An electrolyte is filled between these two layers. This electrolyte contains negatively charged and positively charged ions. These are the carriers of electricity. The electrolyte is a wet pulp of zinc chloride. The chemical formula for zinc chloride is ZnCl2 and ammonium chloride NH4Cl. There is a graphite rod at the center of the cell. This is positive terminal of the cell. A paste of manganese dioxide MnO2 is filled outside the rod. Because of the chemical reactions of all these chemicals, electrical charge is produced on the two terminals, graphite rod and zinc layer, and an electric current flows in the circuit. So students, due to the wet pulp used in this cell, the chemical reaction proceeds very slowly. Hence, a large electric current cannot be obtained from this cell. Compared to the electric cells using liquids, the shelf life of dry cells is longer. Dry cells are very convenient to use as this can be held in any direction with respect to ground and can be used in mobile instruments. Students, have you ever observed this kind of object? Yes, this is a cell holder. The primary function of a battery holder is to keep cells fixed in place safely. A battery holder has one or more compartments for holding a battery. We will learn about this concept in more detail in our next module. So students, do you know a car uses a secondary cell? Yes, a car uses a secondary cell. Let us understand what are secondary cells. So students, do you know me? Think for a moment. Let me give you a hint. I am used in cars. Yes, I am nothing but a battery and my another name is secondary cell. So students, do you know a lead acid battery is an example of a secondary cell? Yes, a lead acid battery is an example of a secondary cell. And now let us understand this term lead acid battery in more detail. Now let us study the materials used for lead acid storage battery cells. The active material required to construct a lead acid batteries are lead peroxide. The chemical formula for lead peroxide is PbO2. Lead sponge, and the chemical formula for lead sponge is Pb. Dilute sulfuric acid, and the chemical formula for sulfuric acid is H2SO4. Let us learn about lead acid cell. The figure shows the design of a lead acid cell. Let us understand its principle. This type of cell can be recharged after getting electrically discharged. The lead acid cell contains a lead electrode and a lead oxide electrode, and both are dipped in dilute sulfuric acid. PbO2 carries a positive charge, while the Pb electrode carries a negative charge. The PbO2 is named as lead dioxide and Pb as lead. The potential difference between these two is nearly 2 volt because of the chemical reaction between the substances in the cell. Electrical charge is produced on both the electrodes and electric current flows through the load, that is bulb, in the circuit. These kind of electric cells have a capacity to deliver large current. Hence, lead acid cells are used in cars, trucks, motorcycles and uninterrupted power supplies. The image shows the lead acid cell placed in a car. Now, let us quickly summarize what we have learned. We have learned about primary cells that are also called as dry cells. A dry cell is a type of electric battery commonly used for portable electrical devices. A common dry cell is the zinc carbon cell. And we have also learned about secondary cells that are batteries or lead acid storage batteries. The battery which uses sponge lead and lead peroxide for the conversion of the chemical energy into electrical power. Such type of battery is called a lead acid battery. Positive electrode has lead peroxide, whereas negative electrode has sponge lead. Students, now try to solve the answer for this question. And for this question, students, this question consists of construction, working and uses of dry cell. Kindly note this answer in your notebook. It will help you to understand this concept very easily. Here's an interesting assignment coming for you all. So students, you must have seen the car battery available in the market. It is called a battery and not a cell. Why? Thank you, my dear students.